And we're live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And well, the Detroit Pistons had a trip out west, a 3-game trip to be exact. And that final record for that 3-game trip will go 1-2. So the Pistons took a loss tonight to the San Antonio Spurs, 109-121. What's one of your first takeaways from this game, Ryan?
Killian Hayes is back.
Right? He is. That dude's a beast.
Yeah, he didn't have his assist numbers up like he did against the Warriors the other night, but I'll take 18 points from him.
Dude, absolutely. And 7 assists. I mean,
That's a solid night.
yeah, absolutely. Do you see him maybe closer, maybe after the All-Star break, maybe averaging that?
I could see that. Maybe
Yeah,
not like consistently every single night. There may be an off night here and there, but I could see that.
yeah. One of my biggest things was free throw shooting. It's especially these last 3 games out west, it
Mhm.
just seems that over the 3 games, the free throw shooting just got worse and worse. We even saw Isaiah Stewart, who's typically a pretty reliable guy at the line, shoot 2 and miss 2 in a row.
Mhm.
It's frustrating. In the end, they went 10 for 17 at 58%, and the Spurs shot 22 out of 26 at 84%. I don't like to be the guy that says free throws determines games, but it definitely would have been a closer game if they were able to make a couple more free throws. And Jalen Duren already struggles at shooting free throws.
Mhm.
So a guy like Stu, when he gets those opportunities at the free throw line, you really want to see us take advantage of that.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed there towards the end when Stu just missed those back to back. And it wasn't like he missed them bad. Like they had a chance of falling, but it was still like you need to make free throws because again, to your point, free throws, in my opinion, do win games, at least in today's game, because today it's all scoring. So if you can get points at the line for free, because that's what they are, and I think that's definitely going to help us because those 2 free throws alone gets us at 111 to at that time 119, which then we would have pressed more and probably would have fouled them immediately, and that would have continued the game on for a little bit longer, and we probably would have had a chance to win. But those 2 misses, we kind of just wait for the game to end, and that's it.
Yeah, and I know last game against the Golden State Warriors, I brought up Jaden Ivey missing free throws and how that can determine whether he scores 18 or 12 because he goes to the free throw line so much. And I do think that was a factor for him reaching the 18 mark was knocking down his free throws when he had the opportunity. It's nice to see when a guy struggles a game before at a certain category of the game and then immediately the next game kind of has a redemption at in that spot in the game. It's really nice to see that, and especially as a Pistons fan who have watched struggles over the years, it's nice to see those struggles get corrected.
Yeah. Yeah, Ivy against the Warriors there was a little quiet, more quiet than we typically like to see out of him. But when you give him the ball and the opportunity to just beat the guy, he's gonna do it every single time. And the Spurs weren't learning about that on defense, apparently.
Yeah.
So we'll take it. I'll take 20 points from Ivy every night. He had 5 assists, 3 rebounds. He did have 2 fouls, but the point is he had a great night. And I don't think teams game planning are really worried about Ivy that much, which is unfortunate. I think they're more worried about Bogey or
Yeah.
what can Stu and Duran do to us in the paint.
Yeah.
But Ivy had a great night.
Yeah, and I think maybe teams don't necessarily game plan against a guy like Jaden Ivey just because the consistency
Yeah.
isn't there yet. A guy like Bogey, he's going to go out there and give you 23. So I think teams are more worried about his contribution rather than Ivy's because Ivy has shown that yep, he can go out and get you 25, but then he might give you 7 the next game
Yep.
and then maybe 12. So that's not necessarily something that you're like ultra worried about. If he was showing, oh, he can go out and get 23 every night, I think teams are gonna the odds of teams game planning around him go up. One thing I want to mention too about Killian Hayes to kind of switch the topic was he got 6 steals tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just like music to my ears to see him just interrupt passes and
Hmm.
literally just take the ball away from guys like Trey Jones. I mean, that's just so fun to watch. He really I didn't think he would be a guy that would be fun to watch, but he has turned into just a guy that like everything he does is with a purpose, and it really is just very fun to watch. Tonight against the Spurs just kind of seemed more mentally in it.
Yep.
The Pistons just made some mistakes that seemed like they were just kind of checked out mentally. They just seemed lazy on defense, kind of sluggish. I don't know if those trips out west are just wear them out by the time the trips are done. Um, but hopefully Sunday we can kind of see them kind of be more in it mentally and stop making those lapse plays. Um, because it does seem that in a 15 game stretch, 5 out of those 15 games, the Pistons just kind of throw away because they just don't seem mentally in it.
Yeah. See, I think coming off the Warriors win, it's more of like, okay, we have something. Let's pump up and get back to work. And then they just went up against a team that's very fundamentally skilled.
Yeah,
So when you have the greatest coach of all time, in my opinion, in Pop, there he loves fundamentals. So you
mm-hmm.
could tell that the Spurs were gassed, but they were still making the plays. And we were just lazy. We weren't cutting in, stopping it. Yeah, I understand that you're tired, but you can still make an attempt to defend here and there. But yeah, I think going forward we need to work on just re-energizing ourselves. Like it doesn't matter if it's a substitution or not. We just need to find a way where we're not gassed at the end, where we shouldn't be gassed. Something like that.
Yeah. One thing too, I noticed no Kevin Knox again tonight.
Yeah.
That's 2 games in a row where he hasn't really got much playing time. Oh, what do you think the science behind that is? Why is Casey kind of taking a step back with Knox? I don't really quite get it.
I don't know. My thing is maybe it's more of a philosophy kind of standpoint. So like like in practice, if what is Kevin Knox showing? Is he showing
Yeah,
that he's ready to go and he's like learning and just developing his game more? Something along those lines.
yeah,
It's a little, for me, it's a little worrisome in the sense that it was the Spurs, and the Spurs aren't great right now. They're in the same boat we are.
but
Um, this is like the perfect game to get a bounce back game for like a guy like Kevin Knox or even Nerlens Noel or people like that. Just in the sense that the Spurs aren't very good and they're definitely gonna play more of their bench, so that means more opportunities and a better look for yourself and more confidence. But I'm definitely wanting to see what's gonna happen with him going forward, because it
yeah,
seems like if you keep having games where he doesn't suit up, well, he suits up, but he just doesn't play, then it's
yeah,
like maybe he's probably either gonna get moved at the deadline or he's just gonna get cut sometime soon. I hope he doesn't because we got a steal out of him,
mhm.
but it it is what it is. It's a business at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was just kind of surprised because, 2 weeks prior to this, he was getting consistent minutes. And then for it to be just completely chopped the way it has been, it kind of is Casey's style, where a guy, you'll see him, we've seen it happen with Hamidou and Corey Joseph, where they'll get consistent minutes, 15, 15, 15, and then just gone.
Yeah.
So it's kind of surprising, but then when I start thinking about it, I'm like, well, it is kind of Casey's style. One thing that I wanted to address too was just bad shot selection. I didn't really like, Bojan. I think he can take a lot of shots, but I just didn't really like his looks tonight. Guys like Bay didn't shoot great.
No.
Burks, unfortunately, who has been hot recently, didn't shoot great. Bojan from the field went 9 for 20, and then Sadiq Bey went 4 for 10, and then Alec Burks went 3 for 10. So that's just not what we want to look at the end of the game from a guy like Burks who's coming off the bench. He's supposed to be a guy that gives us immediate offensive boost. And when you don't see him do that against a bad team like the Spurs, I'm not surprised it's a loss, because if I had to guess, Alec Burks shot 3 for 10. If it was a loss or a win, I'm guessing that's a loss,
Yeah.
because we just need that burst against a team like the Spurs. Because I do believe we're better than the Spurs. Our roster is better, but when you just on a night don't get the right production from the right players, it ends up in an L.
Yeah, and this is where practice comes in.
Mhm.
Um, it in practice, what kind of shots are you taking is the question. Because if you're not taking good shots in practice, that's going to relate to games. But um, I just think it comes back to the Spurs a little bit here because of how fundamentally skilled they are, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because you have Jokic Poeltl, who's one of the best bigs in the NBA, in my opinion. He's
Mhm.
7'1". He can block shots like it's nothing. So
Yeah.
when you give teams like the Spurs a chance that's well coached, they're gonna defend you the right way. And I just think we got a little lazy in our shooting and just kind of threw up some shots here and there. Like Isaiah Stewart there shooting a couple threes. It's like he wants to shoot it because he's being told to shoot it. But
Yeah.
at the same time, he's like, the defender's right in my face. I shouldn't shoot this, but I'm gonna shoot this still. And
Yeah.
so that's what I mean. Like we're being lazy and not taking great shots. For me, you got to be open. If you're not open, don't force it.
Yeah. Yeah, guy, you're mentioning Jakob. Jakob gave us 11 points, 7 assists, and 16 rebounds on 4 or 5 shooting with a couple free throws in there. I mean, yeah, I mean that when you're starting centers giving you a stat line like that, that's a recipe for success. Trey Jones gave us 25 points, 11 of 18 shooting in 32 minutes. Trey Jones, a guy that doesn't really get much shine, just because he is on a bad San Antonio's team. But I mean, he's a great talent. He
Yeah.
showed against a good defender like Killian that he can go out and get 25 on a solid defender. I give him props for that for sure.
Yeah, their whole team can pretty much score. Granted, that could just be us in the sense of how bad we are right now.
Yeah.
But uh just like uh Malcolm is it Malcolm? Branham there. There
Okay.
was he has typically he doesn't play as much. He
Mhm.
has a limited role just in the sense he's a rookie and was a late round pick, but
Yeah.
that doesn't matter for Pop. But he has been seeing the floor less than majority of them.
Mhm.
But you saw that one backdoor cut by him and he finished. Like you have that every night from a guy who barely sees the floor, you're gonna get beat. He had 14 points,
Yeah.
3 assists, 1 steal, 2 rebounds. That's a solid night for a late round pick coming off the bench.
Yeah. Absolutely. And how about Stanley Johnson, 3 for 3 from three? When he was hitting those threes, did you like kind of take a step back and be like, oh, he's really hitting threes on us? That's not what he could do when he was in Detroit.
Yeah, and I found that funny when Greg was commentating uh there in the late half of the game.
Yeah.
He's like, hit Stanley for the three. And I'm like, wait, you just said Stanley instead of Sadiq.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I meant Sadiq. And I'm like, okay.
Uh,
But but yeah, Stanley Johnson, he had a
I,
pretty decent game.
I'm shocked that he has a roster spot, to be honest. He was with with Toronto for a couple of years, and then maybe one team between
I believe he
Toronto.
also played on the Lakers at one point.
Yep, last year I believe it was the Lakers, maybe the year before. I'm surprised he's still in the league, but shout out to him. I mean, it hurts. They even showed on the screen that we picked him at number 8, and it's just
Mhm.
like pick number 8 is just so high for it not to work out. You know what I mean? It just stings that much more. If it was like 15 and up, I'm like, those are risks anyway.
Yeah.
It's just a guessing game. But number 8, it's just so frustrating. But
Yeah, and
it's nice to see him on a roster.
yeah, you look back at our past videos there, you were saying that we need to give him another chance. Maybe you were right.
Oh, did I say
Yeah,
that?
you did.
Oh, I don't even remember. Yeah, that makes sense. I was a big Stanley guy. We drafted him in 2015, and so I was like 14. I was watching his highlights at Arizona and in high school. Dude, his highlights were
Yeah.
gnarly. Also, I was so excited for him, and it just never panned out the way we
No,
expected.
but for him going forward, him coming off the bench, 15 plus minutes, that's not bad for him.
No, no. And you know what? I'm guessing this is a pretty good night for him. I don't think he typically goes out and hits three threes in a game.
Yeah.
That's just not his play style. He's more of a defender and a kind of like a Hamidou-esque player, maybe a
Hmm.
little bit more skilled offensively. But I don't think that's the typical form. It's just past Pistons players historically play so well against the
Yeah.
Pistons. It's just the way it is.
And that was
Any last thoughts before we start wrapping it up today, Ryan?
um hmm. Because there's so many ways I could take this. Let's
Mhm.
go with Killian Hayes had a great game and what we expect from him.
Yep.
And if he can keep doing this night in and night out, I'm happy.
Yeah, that actually a good question before we wrap things up is what should we expect from Killian with him playing well, having quiet games every once in a while? What's a spot that we could put him at of this is what we expect and it's fair and we think he can reach it? Where do you think that's at?
So if we're going off a night of scoring like it was tonight, I would say expect 16 or 14 points and like a quiet 6, 7 assists. If
Mhm.
you're expecting an assist night, expect what he did against the Warriors there. Expect 13 assists and maybe 9 points. Either way, he's still having a positive impact on the game, and it is either way, it's a solid night for him.
Mhm. Yeah, I like him at that 15-point mark and like 8, 9 assists. I really like him right there. I think if he can give that to us every night, I think accompany that with Bojan and Duran, I think that's a recipe for success if he could just get us that 15 points and 8 assists. So I think that's a good spot. I don't know if he's quite there yet where he can get that for us every night, but I think soon he will be
Yeah.
there. It just takes a little bit more time. And if Cade's alongside him, I think he can reach that. Well, I think that's going to wrap up today's episode. I'll repeat the final score from tonight's game against the San Antonio Spurs, 109 to 121 in San Antonio's favor. We will be back Sunday. I can't remember who they play, but it's an afternoon game Sunday. So lots of sports to watch Sunday to look forward to. So thank you for listening. You can go and subscribe, turn on the notifications button. Follow us on Instagram at Revved Up 906. We also have TikTok. We have a Twitter that Ryan runs, and we appreciate y'all for listening. See you next time. Peace.